So this is my planning board. This is where I have the plan layouts for all three track lines. I'm going to be doing three, and I've dubbed them the black line, the green line, and the red line. And here you see the plans for each of those lines. It's interesting to do because as you're making out the plans, oftentimes you find yourself going back, making adjustments, as I did here, to the green line, or the black line, I'm sorry, where I tried to make it a little bit simpler than my initial plan, and I'm glad I did that actually. And then in addition to these three different track line plans that I have at the top of the planning board, I'm starting to think about the scenery and the landscaping, because all of this, the way the track is laid out, the way you want your trains to run, is in conjunction with the scenery. Planning out your track plan is an interesting process. You can go with automated plan software like Atlas has, or you can do what I did, which is I just sat down and just started running the track and figuring things out and experimenting a little bit. And through that experimentation process, I came up with what I consider to be the three track plans that I want for my layout. Now, I've already laid down the groundwork for the black line. What you're viewing here is the green line layout. This is a layout that I decided on, and it's going to actually travel over the black line, and that's going to create about 6 different tunnel scenes, which I'm pretty excited about. It's going to be pretty neat. I found that it's really important when you're planning your track layout to be also considering what the scenery and the landscaping is going to look like, because those are the two elements that have to gel together for a really exciting layout, I believe. This is an example of the green line, and when your layout is finally figured out, when you finally figure out how you want to do it, you want to pin down the track. And again, since you're using a foam board as a base, that's pretty easy to do. You're simply going to pin it down. It's a good idea to run your train on it to make sure that your design is going to be workable, that the train's going to run smoothly. And then once you pin it down, you'll take a pencil and you'll trace out the track. And you're going to need to do that because the next step is to disassemble all this track and to lay the risers down, which is what you're ultimately going to put the roadbed and the track on. So here's an example of the risers as I had them so far. At this point, I got the 1/2-inch risers down for the black line. That's the lower level ones that you see there. That's my black line, and the risers are down, and you simply lay the risers over the pencil marks that you had made and glue them down. And it's a good idea to center the risers on the pencil marks as you're doing that. So I did that, and the larger ones that you're seeing, I've already got started on some of the 4-inch risers for the green line as well, but the shorter ones that you're seeing are the black line, and they're complete. So my next step will be able to do some plaster work on the black line risers. But before I do that, I want to work on my track. So a lot of the track that I'm using, in fact all of the track that I'm using for this layout on all 3 lines that I'm building is used recycled track. In fact, some of the track that I bought from third parties is anywhere from 30 to 40 years old. So there's a lot of dirt and grime on every piece. So one of my challenges was I had to inspect every single piece of track, make sure that there weren't any physical limitations to it or physical damage to it, and then figure out how to clean it. And what I came up with was really the easiest way, simply taking a light grade sandpaper and sanding down the tops of the rails first. And you can see that really does the trick in getting most of the grime off the top part of the rail. So that's problem A solved. But then the rest of the problem, of course, is that there's just all sorts of debris built up along the sides of the rails and the rail posts themselves. So what I'm doing is I'm using just a standard track cleaner. This is Woodland Scenic's product, but I'm just using some track cleaner. And I'll take a towel, after I've sanded down the top of the rail, I'll take a towel and I'll clean the sides of the rails with the track cleaner and the railroad ties itself. And then I'm doing that to every single piece of track that I'm laying on all 3 lines. So as you can imagine, that's a little bit of tedious work, but it pays off because once you put this track down, your hope is that it's going to run smooth and clean for years to come. And you can do that by taking the extra time to make sure that it's clean, straight, and properly working before you lay it. I have all this old track. Some of them are 30, 35 years old, and they're really perfectly good. They just need to be cleaned and sometimes adjusted, and they should give me a lot of years of good use. So I have over 150 pieces of track total for the 3 layouts, for the 3 lines that I'm creating, and so that's a lot of track to clean. You saw previously where to prep this, I took some light grade sandpaper and sanded down the top of the rail. Now what I have to do is give them a good cleaning. I'm going to do that with just some track cleaner and a towel. And I'm going to clean the top rail first on the side. Do the bottom rail on the inside. And then flip it around. Do the same thing with the other side. And then I'm going to give the top rail a once over here. And voila, that should do it. Take a look at the towel. Got a lot of dirt. In fact, just on some of the ones that I've been doing recently, there's a ton of dirt on these tracks. So it's a little bit of work, very labor intensive, but the good news is that they don't make them like this anymore. These are really good pieces of track, and now that they've been adjusted and cleaned up a little bit, I expect they're going to give me several more years of great use. So that's how we're prepping our tracks. Of course, our next step is to lay the plaster cloth down on the risers, because on top of the plaster cloth we're going to put our road bed, and then we can finally lay our track, and that is all coming up in the next video. See you then.